Morning, Dr. Ratey. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to get all the questions answered that were posted on Facebook. So many fellow followers did have a few that they'd like to ask, and just want to get started here. So for our first question that came from Tanya, Tanya was wondering if there would be any opportunities for staff and parents in her community to hear you speak. She'd love to learn more and think it would be very valuable for as many people as possible to share your knowledge on exercise and the brain. She's also wondering if you have any opinions regarding neurofeedback for ADHD and or migraine treatment. She's looking into it as an alternative to medication and was just curious about your thoughts.
Hi, Tanya. Yes, there may be an opportunity to get me to come up to Maine, is it, that Tanya's from? And speak there to a large enough group. I speak all over the world and all over the country, and I love to, used to come up to Maine quite a bit. So yes, and talk about the benefits of exercise for the brain. As well, there's a lot of YouTubes of my other lectures at various places around the world that you can patch into from my website, johnratey.com. And your second question about neurofeedback. It's a old field, actually, but a new one in terms of trying to really bring it into a scientific domain, to really look at the science of it. It is something that is being used as a treatment for ADHD, and certainly for migraines. Both biofeedback and neurofeedback can be useful. I caution you, however, to make sure that it's a good neurofeedback practitioner, because there's a lot of them out there, and most of them haven't done the best training or don't have the best technique, so you have to really explore that.
Great, thanks so much, Dr. Ratey. For our next question that comes from Amanda. Her son has Asperger's and is wondering if you've done any extensive studies on how exercise affects daily life for kids on the spectrum. She also feels that her son is engaged in a consistent exercise regimen and has fewer regression issues, but is curious if you've conducted any follow-up studies or surveys with the teachers regarding box kids' attention span, energy, and how that compares to their classmates.
Right. Well, I actually work a lot with people on the spectrum, and always have. And currently I'm involved with a big research group in upstate New York at a place called Center for Discovery for adolescent autistic kids who have trouble managing their symptoms. And a big part of the treatment that has led to very large success in this group is getting them moving and keeping them moving up to 65% of the day, or the time that they're awake, not just the day. They manage their diets, manage their sleep, but they've had very notable success in reducing medications, etc. But for kids like your son, who's on the Asperger's side of the spectrum, we know that exercise helps reduce the stress and anxiety and improves contact, improves connection with others in Asperger kids and adults. And so it's very, very useful. As far as the follow-up study, we recently have completed a follow-up study. A group called NIOS has just compiled a study from last year looking at some of the questions that you mentioned, and that will be published soon on the Box website.
Thank you. For our third question, it comes from Kimberly. She's interested in hearing your thoughts on the benefits, besides health, of exercise for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, in particular autism and Down syndrome. She's wondering if you have any ideas on how the Box program can help school systems include these students in Box as well.
Right. Yes. They definitely have a big effect on kids with intellectual differences. A lot of my work is with schools that cater to kids with ADD, LD, autism, Asperger's syndrome, and they find it very, very useful to get these kids moving. As for Box, we also don't exclude anyone. In fact, there are a number of schools in the Boston area that are catered to kids of multiple differences, and Box is very, very popular there and very, very useful. Extremely popular amongst the teachers. I was at the Henderson School where they have an active program and spoke to one of the third grade teachers who said to me, she said, on Box days, a bunch of my kids are very, very good students. They sit and they pay attention. On the non-Box days, they're a handful, and she wanted to push to have Box every morning. I think that attests to the usefulness of Box, and we don't exclude any child. In fact, we look for those kids that have more of a trouble, because there's a bigger bang for their buck, and they're what I call low-hanging fruit in terms of seeing an effect. You can just pull it off the tree.
Great, thanks so much. For our next question, it comes from Heather. She has children in private schools, and their school days begin very early, too early for them to attend one of the Box classes in her town. She's wondering if the program can be beneficial at another time of the day, perhaps during or after school?
Heather, yes, Box program could be absolutely useful after school or another time during the day. I mean, some schools do have it chunked in, or parts of it chunked in throughout the day. And I'm very aware that private schools start early, and yes, it could be something or something similar to the Box program as an after-school piece. But that obviously is going to depend on the administration and working around so many competing schedules.
Great, thank you. Our fifth question comes from Kristen. She says, the research you did in the book Spark is primarily with high school kids. Has there been any research done in the elementary schools? Is there a way to measure the effects, benefits of physical activity on elementary school kids?
Yes, there's been a lot of studies looking at the effect of exercise on elementary school kids. In fact, we've done a lot of studies throughout the country looking at changing to PE from once a week to every day, but making it a fitness-based PE program, very similar to Box, making sure the kids have fun, and they want to do it, and they continue to do it. And what we see uniformly, both in the suburbs and in the inner city, is the first thing that happens is that there's a drop in discipline problems. The second thing that happens is that there's an improvement in attendance and on-time school, arriving at school, a decrease in tardiness. And the third thing that happens is there's an improvement in teacher satisfaction, in student satisfaction, student participation in school, and a rise in test scores. So it's a perfect mix of benefits of a program like Box, or the Box program per se.
Great. Our next question comes from Christopher. What role has the NCLB and Race to the Top played in the lessening of physical activity time in schools?
Chris, hello. You're the perfect one to ask this question. Yes, the No Child Left Behind and the Race to the Top, really, which focus on test scores, has had a tremendous effect on reducing the amount of time kids spend in physical education and in recess. They're putting kids more in the chairs so that they can drill, baby drill, and this takes away from a lot of different aspects of learning and growth in our children, but especially on the physical side. teachers and administrators are pushing to get higher test scores and don't realize that by cutting out physical activity and physical fitness, that they are actually reducing the test scores, the compliance, the interest, the participation in class. So yes, No Child Left Behind, I call it No Child Helped at All, because it is a brilliant idea, but there was no money to follow through with it. No increase in time spent in school so that one could increase the amount of teaching and learning that the children could do.
Great. And for our last question, that comes from Kimberly. Would it be better for a high school student to get an hour of activity in the morning or an hour of sleep?
Kimberly, very good question. The answer is both and, not either or. So I do think that the biggest problem around the world among students, both in junior high and high school, as well as college and throughout the rest of their life, is a lack of sleep, and especially in high school students, because they're staying up all hours of the night and using their energy drinks in the morning to get going, and this is a bad cycle, but that's more the reality than the exception. So, and we know that sleep is vitally important. I have a new book coming out in June called Go Wild, and we have a whole chapter on sleep and the benefits of sleep and the problems that our society has developed in part because of our poor sleep habits. And my suggestion is you get all the digital world out of the bedroom as much as possible, and limit connections like the cell phone and tablets and certainly computers to a certain time during the day when it has to be shut off. Otherwise, kids routinely are up well past midnight, high school kids, texting, checking Facebook or Twitter or whatever the latest is. And it's a big, big problem.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Ratey. I think I speak on behalf of all of our social media followers that we really, really do appreciate your time, and we hope we get to do this again with you very soon.
Very good.
Thank you.
Keep sending those questions in.